Hi all and welcome back. Right, let's get into some news items, and the first two are all about children as well. And this first one is Denmark, which has been voted one of the happiest countries in the world, according to the UN's World Happiness Report. And it classifies the happiness of 155 countries around the world, and for 7 years has placed Denmark amongst the top 3 happiest countries on a global level. Now, the fact that teaching empathy has been mandatory since 1993 in schools in Denmark is considered a factor that contributes to the happiness of the country. Empathy builds relationships, prevents bullying, and succeed at work. And it promotes the growth of leaders, entrepreneurs, and managers. Now, empathic teenagers tends to be more successful because they are more oriented towards the goals compared to the more narcissistic peers, it is said in the report. And in Danish schools, an hour a week is dedicated to the Klassens Tid, an empathy lesson for students aged 6 to 16 years. And it is a fundamental part of the Danish curriculum. Well, perhaps we can bring that here as well. So it's a few more ideas for the charter school team. And the hour of empathy is as important as the time spent, for example, on English or maths. And during Klassens Tid, the students discuss their problems, either related to school or not, and the whole class, together with the teacher, tries to find a solution based on real listening and understanding. And if there are no problems to discuss, children have simply spent the time together relaxing and enjoying. Hygge, a word and also a verb and an adjective which cannot be translated literally, since it's a phenomenon closely related to the Dutch culture. But it could be defined as intentionally created intimacy. Now, in a country where it gets dark very early in the year and it rains and it's fairly grey, it's a bit like Britain, Hygge means bringing light, warmth and friendship and creating a shared, welcoming and intimate atmosphere within the classroom. And it is a fundamental concept for the Dutch sense of well-being, and it's also becoming a global phenomenon. Now, apparently Amazon Spit sells more than 900 books on Hygge, and Instagram has more than 3 million posts with the hashtag Hygge. Now, the American writer and psychologist Jessica Alexander, author of the book The Danish Way of Parenting, what the happiest people in the world know about raising confident, capable kids, with the Danish psychotherapist Eben Sandal, which is translated into 21 languages, has conducted field research to understand how the Danes teach empathy. And one of the ways is through teamwork. Well, I never. And thanks to which 60% of the tasks at school are carried out. And the focus, which is the key, is not to excel over others. Not competitive. But to have a responsibility in helping those who are not equally gifted. So we all lift each other up. All become leaders, not the one. And for these reasons, Denmark is also considered one of the best places to work in Europe also. Competition is exclusively with oneself, not with others. And Danish schools offer neither prizes nor trophies to their students who excel in school subjects or in sport, so as to not create competition. Instead, they practice the culture of motivation, to improve measured exclusively in relation to themselves. Now, the Danes give a lot of space to children's free play, which teaches empathy and negotiation skills. Playing in the country has been considered an educational tool since 1871, and there is a collaborative learning which consists in bringing together children with different strengths and weaknesses in different subjects to make them help each other in class and working together on various projects. And the latter method teaches children from an early age that one cannot succeed alone and that helping others leads to better results. And a child who is naturally talented in maths without learning to collaborate with their peers will not go much further. They will need help in other subjects. And it's, as the Jessica Alexander said, it's a great lesson to teach children from an early age, since no one can go through life alone. She then continues, many studies show that when you explain something to someone, like a math problem for example, you not only learn the subject much better than you would do by memorising it yourself, but you also build empathy skills which are further strengthened by having to be careful about the way the other person receives the information. And having put oneself in their shoes to understand how learning works, going to a lesson of empathy gives great satisfaction and joy to Danish children and prepares them to become happy adults. Nice happy story from a nice happy country, and a lesson to us adults. If the children can do that in Denmark, what's stopping the adults in the THI club, state and country groups, from adopting the same thing? No competition. All leaders, all share ideas, and all lift each other up. We're going to my place, hometown now. Proposed new rules on vaccinations could result in thousands of Liverpool children being barred from school, according to the Health Secretary Matt Hancock. And he told the Conservative Party conference this week that the government was seriously considering banning children who had not had the full vaccine programme. Great. You're not going to learn anything there anyway. And it comes as rising numbers of children don't get all the vaccines recommended by the NHS, and cases of measles have begun to rise. An analysis of Public Health England figures last year suggests more than 16,000 school-aged children in Merseyside and Halton, born between 2000 and 2016, had not had the first MMR jab, and as many as 33,766 children in the same group have not had the second dose by the time they turn 5. So speaking earlier this week, Mr. Hancock said there was a very strong argument for making some vaccines compulsory for children attending school. Okay, we don't really want to go to your schools. Let's create our own, where vaccines are not needed. Under the charter school, the only restrictions, as I understand it, I don't know too much about it, is on the canteen and what you're feeding the children. The curriculum and everything else is decided by the school. So that first piece, or these first two news pieces, can be implemented into those schools. It's not compulsory to have vaccines, it's a choice, free will. And we can adopt empathy, as well as also it would be a nice idea to have an hour empathy each week and an hour meditation each week, to reflect. and then we can at least then have more rounded children who can then teach the adults how to behave. The death toll from an ongoing anti-government protest in Iraq has almost risen to almost 100 this week, according to the country's Parliamentary Human Rights Commission. It also said more than 3,000 people had been injured. Now, the authorities have tried to take control of the demonstrations, which began last week with curfews and near total internet blackout. And on Saturday, riot police blocked major meeting points in Baghdad. Now, the protests are seen as the first major challenge to Mr. Mahdi's fragile government, which was installed by certain agency people, as we know. And nearly a year since he came to power, demonstrators say they are taking a stand against unemployment, poor public services, and, go figure, corruption. And that is at the heart of the discontent faced by young Iraqis today. Now, the unrest began spontaneously with no formal leadership in most Shia areas in the south, and it quickly spread. Now, when you can understand that Iraq is the world's fourth largest reserve of oil, which is why we attacked, or why the US military attacked, but 22.5% of its population of 40 million were living on less than $1.90 a day, as recent as 2016. Fifth were living on $1.90 a day. And 1 in 6 households has experienced some form of food insecurity. All that oil being stolen by Bush's Netanyahu, Khomeini, and none of it's going. That wealth is going to the Iraqi people, like Venezuela. Same thing. Now, the unemployment rate was 8% last year, but among young people, it was 15%, and almost 17% of the economically active population is underemployed. 10 days after he testified in the murder trial of the former Dallas police officer who got jail, Amber Geiger, she got 10 years jail. The key witness, Joshua Brown, was gunned down at his apartment complex this week. Brown, who lived across the hall from Botham Jean at Dallas Southside Flats apartment last year, when Officer Amber Geiger walked into Jean's apartment, mistaking it for her own, and then killed Jean. And Brown's testimony during her murder trial was key because he was able to describe the officer's actions immediately after she killed their neighbour, now dead. Make of that what you will. Hundreds of Extinction Rebellion activists, climate freaks, have been arrested as protests take place across the globe. 30 people were charged with committing offences in Sydney after hundreds blocked the road, while more than 100 were arrested in Amsterdam. You notice these climate change people leave a lot of trash behind. Obviously not worried about leaving trash behind and trashing the planet. And protests have taken place in countries in the US, UK, Germany, Spain, Austria, France and New Zealand. Protests by climate change activists are expected in some 60 cities over the next 2 weeks. And the group is also causing disruption in London, where more than 270 people were arrested on Monday. two more news bits before we go into sub-intel. Foreign Minister Israel Katz. What a convenient name that is. Israel Katz. Oh dear. On Sunday confirmed that he had been advancing non-aggressive treaties with several Arab countries in the Gulf, which is a historic démarche, he said, that could end the conflict between Jerusalem and those states. And he said, recently I've been promoting, with the backing of the Prime Minister, a diplomatic initiative to sign non-aggression agreements with the Arab Gulf states. And he said it is a historic move that will end the conflict and enable civilian cooperation until the signing of peace agreements. And what appeared to be an acknowledgement that no Arab country is currently willing to establish full diplomatic relations with the Jewish state as long as the Israeli-Palestine conflict remains unresolved. And on September the 23rd, that's when he did all this chatting and trying to arrange agreements. And it all sounds rather good. But here's the kicker. And there always is with these people. Katz then tweeted that he had held talks with an unnamed counterpart from an Arab country with which Israel does not have formal relations, and said that they had discussed, quote, ways to deal with the Iranian threat and a process for boosting civilian cooperation. What essentially that is, knowing how those people, Zionists, work, is they're trying to get certain Arab countries on their side, where they will not intervene if they go and attack, for argument's sake, Iran, or they will garner support with them. And they're trying to isolate Iran. So not as historic as he made it out to be. Power company, PG&E, Rothschilds owned, is cutting around 800,000 homes this week electricity. Businesses and other locations in Northern California in an attempt, they say, to prevent wildfires. And large swathes of the San Francisco Bay Area, although not the city itself, have lost power, which has angered residents. Now, the region's utility company, Pacific Gas and Electric, has warned the shutdown could last several days, and the company's transmission line started the deadliest wildfire in California's history last year. No, it didn't. It was direct energy weapons, courtesy of the SSP. With weather forecasts predicting high winds, the move is intended to prevent the risk of fallen power lines igniting more wildfires. And they said the conditions are ripe. Dry fuel, high winds, warm event. Any spark can create a significant event, says Ray Riordan, Director of Office of Emergency Management in San Jose. And the National Weather Service has issued a red flag warning for the Santa Cruz Mountains, North and East Bay regions until Thursday, warning that conditions could result in the strongest offshore wind event in the area since the October 2017 North Bay fires. This is the problem. I mean, we've referenced this in shows before. Is in this day and age, surely there's better preventative measures than just shutting everyone off. You know, this is the problem with utilities being owned by rogue families like Rothschilds, and a bundle of shareholders taking all the company profits out and nothing getting put back into the infrastructure of it. You have the same in the UK. The water companies and electric companies. The sewerage in the UK, particularly in London, is all collapsing. Why? Because they've never invested a single penny into it. That's why. And essentially, they're all Victorian sewer pipes. And the utilities should be a public-owned company and non-profit also, in my opinion. No shareholders, a cooperative run venture by the people. There's certain things, it seems that people have got to make money on everything these days, but these are essentials of life and really should be making profit on them, particularly some of the profits that they're making and funneling into bulging into people's pockets that are already bulging because they're involved in several other ventures. That needs to stop. Where are we going next? We're going back to children again.